Hey everyone, I'm Joe. Today it's time for me to do a book review of Empire of Sand, written by Tasha Suri. I read this in ebook format, so obviously there will be a picture up on screen, and I won't be waving any books out here. Now, this book was first published in 2018, and it is classified as a fantasy novel. And indeed, that is where the setting starts off. This is a fantasy kingdom with nobility and royalty. However, this is definitely not the Western setting of nobility and royalty that obviously many popular fantasy books in the Western world popularise and make famous. This is an Indian take on that nobility and royalty, and of course imperialism does come into this to a large degree, unsurprisingly. Now, this is a world that is filled with a religious system and gods. The gods essentially have a certain amount of magic which they don't do themselves, but essentially sort of passed down of sorts to spirits that exist. And there is a certain type of individual who is very, very rare, who can do these very ritualistic dances which are based on real life dances, which the author has some connection to with her family, I believe, in a personal manner. And these dances control, or at least can mitigate, the spirits, because the spirits occasionally can get a bit too intense and can create problems for the general population in certain areas. And these individuals can do these very stylized and ritualistic dances and get rid of the spirits, or at least placate them for a much longer period of time. Although, of course, these individuals that can do this dance are very rare, and they're very sought after, although they are somewhat abused in a sense because they are so rare, sadly. And that is where the plot starts off, because the main character is a young woman called May. She is the illegitimate daughter of a noble in a major city. Now, she is the illegitimate daughter, although she is accepted barely, purely due to her father's position and his title and so forth. She has a younger sister as well. Her sister does come into the plot, although frankly only in a fairly mild way, although her sister does take centre stage and is the main character in the sequel book to this one, if that is of interest to you. So, one day, I'm making this quite brief to avoid spoilers and such, a visiting party comes to the house. Obviously, the godfather, May's father, hosts the individuals because it is the polite thing to do considering their rank and status and so forth. However, essentially they want May to come with them and join a religious order, which she kind of has to do really, because the positions of power and things are such that it would present massive problems for May's father, sister and extended family if she didn't. So she's forced pretty much to go on this really quite harsh and laborious journey through the desert, which is brutal, something that I would not want to do myself, and go to this desert city and become part of a religious order, or at least appear to on the outside. Of course, she doesn't really want to be there, but she kind of has to be. And then she will do the various dances and things at the command of the religious order, which is the main religion in this kingdom. And all I'm going to say is the plot goes from there. Everything is not quite as it seems. There are twists and turns, and it's a really interesting plot overall, and one that I really enjoyed. So, first of all, the world building is really impressive and quite simply amazing. The idea of a setting, at least to me, where you think you sort of know it, but not really, because of course everything's not obviously the Western standard. It's got elements of Western standard there, but it's not obviously. is really interesting and creates an interesting dynamic, both for the world building and the way certain political blocks and elements of society work together, and of course for the characters, because the characters have got certain personalities which you might expect them to be a certain way due to Western standards, and then they're not quite though, because this isn't Western, not entirely. It's an interesting mix of West and not West, and it's curious, and I think done really, really well. The main character of May is a very strong-minded woman who knows what she wants, but she also knows what people expect of her, and indeed what might happen if, for instance, she doesn't join society, this religious order, and what might affect her family. So she kind of feels like she has to. It's a complicated situation, and she does manage it really, really well due to her personality. And as a character, she's really, really fun to read about. The other main male lead is also an interesting one. He's more quiet and a lot more sort of stoic than she is, but in a curious way. But the book is more about Mare than anybody else, and for that I'm glad, because she's a really interesting character and a strong character that I enjoyed reading about, and she's just a great lead character for a world and plot that I think works because of her. The whole book is linked directly to one character. Sometimes this can fail if the character doesn't work for you on a personal level. This does though, because at least on a personal level, because the character is a good character. She means well, she tries to do everything she can to help, but she's also stubborn and knows her own mind and strong-willed, and she's a character that you can't help but like, which I did indeed obviously like very much. Some of the subjects dealt with in this book are unsurprisingly imperialism, because of course this is a sort of fantasy alternative version of sort of India and sort of British colonialism, imperialism, that sort of idea. This is relatively light though compared to some novels. This is not the focus of the novel, but it does definitely exist, because of course the way the kingdom works, you get the distinct impression that it is there, just lighter than maybe it was in our world, but you're never entirely sure. Maybe this will be delved into in future books, I do not yet know, but it's an interesting mix. Another major issue that the book deals in is persecution of beliefs, and indeed just belief systems. This is a worldwide or a statewide, whatever you want to call it, religion. It's got a very particular way of looking at the world, and this is not an open-minded religion. This is a very fixed and rigid system, where if you don't do what the religion expects of you, then you're basically cast as a terrible human and a kind of heretic essentially, and you are sort of pushed down in society. This is due to the fact that the religion has the ear of the emperor, or neither an emperor of the overall land as well. I forgot to mention that. And it's a curious situation, and one that brings up issues of what place does religion have in society, and what place does society have with religion, and how do these two intersect, and are they one and the same, are they not? I'm not going to give my own views on this, but let's just say that it does question your own belief in quite interesting ways. And indeed, the final major subject to me that was brought out was the question of free choice and free will, and just people's ability to be themselves in a society where your role is defined by your ancestry, by your parents, rather than by your personality, by your skills, your knowledge, and your force of personality. This is not, it's more case of that's plays a role, but not that much. It's where you are expected to be. And this questions, should that system exist? Obviously it shouldn't. It should be based on individuals rather than based on some sort of idea by society, which personally. And it questions this in an interesting way. It will make you think and evaluate what your ideas are in relation to the ideas that the book puts forward, and how you might react in that situation. And it's a subject and a concept done in such an interesting way that I really enjoyed it, and I think the book was really, really strong because of this and all the other areas that I mentioned. Overall, I would highly recommend this novel. It is a well-written novel with a interesting and really in-depth world building, great characters, especially the main character, interesting topics that it talks about in great detail. It makes you think about both yourself and the wider world around you. And frankly, it does everything a interesting and good novel makes you do, frankly. So I would heavily recommend this. And with that said, that is actually it for this novel. So if you have read this book, or if you have read books similar to this and you feel like leaving a comment and giving me ideas on what else I might enjoy, then please feel free to leave a comment. All my social media links, as well as a link to the book on Goodreads, can be found in the description box below. And with that said, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.